First off, the Sex Pistols were notorious for their bad behavior. They offended the Queen of England. They'd spit on you if they didn't like you, and they did what they wanted, when they wanted, and that usually involved destroying something. But most of all, they just made their music and just didn't give a damn about what anyone thought.
When you're unique and you're doing something that nobody's ever seen before, and let's face it, the Pistols did things and said things that nobody had ever heard or seen before, you're going to take grief from the establishment, and that's what they did.
Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols rank 11th in our rock and roll rogues gallery. The band shocked the world with their bad behavior, had some nasty habits, and were prone to violence on stage and off. At their very first show in 1975, these punk pioneers were booted off stage after only 10 minutes.
I mean, without a doubt, they were bad boys, but I think, to me, a lot of that was just show. A lot of it was just reckless abandon.
It just seems wherever I go, I create a fuss, and I don't mean to either.
Yeah, Johnny Rotten, what a son of a bitch that guy was. Not that he was bad, he thought he was bad. I think I could have kicked his ass myself, but he was just a jerk. That's what I call a jerk. Rotten.
In 1976, they were dropped by their record label EMI after spewing obscenities on live TV.
Bill Grundy was sort of the Johnny Carson of the UK. It was live, so they start spouting obscenities at Bill Grundy.
You dirty what a clever boy. What a f***ing rotter. Well, that's it for tonight.
I mean, imagine if some hooligans had come on and started attacking Johnny on live TV. It would have been blasphemy.
We're so pretty, oh, so pretty.
October 1978, Sid's girlfriend Nancy Spungen was found dead at New York City's Chelsea Hotel. Sid was charged with murder, but he died of a drug overdose before the case went to trial.
They wrote the book, if you will. They were badasses who paved the way for many future generations of badasses.
We're so pretty, oh, so pretty.
The Sex Pistols' message of mayhem has inspired a whole new generation of punks to raise hell.
They penned anarchy in the UK, and for that reason alone, they've got to be badasses.
At any moment, I can make a complete arse of myself, but that's the fun of it.
Hey, we got a kick-ass rock show special for you. We've compiled a list of the 10 biggest badasses of all time, history of rock, and we're going to show them to you. You know, the ones who have partied the hardest and broke the most rules and in some cases paid the price. We actually started with 40 artists on our list, and if you missed some of the badasses, let's take a look. Wendy O. Williams never hit the mainstream, but as the singer of the Plasmatics, she definitely paved the way for a lot of the women in the future of rock and roll. You know, her extreme stage antics and performances earned her the respect of her fellow musicians, and well, she made music the way she wanted to, and for that, she's a badass.
Number 10 on the list of top 40 badasses, the late Wendy O. Williams. She had a thing for power tools, no respect for automotive engineering, and a truly lawless fashion sense.
I've got a reputation. People know who I am.
Wendy had an insatiable appetite for destruction, exploding cars, chainsawing guitars. That was her idea of quality entertainment.
I'm known for being the loudest, the most excessive.
And she got out there and she just did what she wanted to do.
In 1981, she was charged with performing a lewd act with a sledgehammer. When an arresting officer allegedly groped her, she lashed out, cost her 7 stitches and the added charge of battery on a police officer.
Wendy O was a badass, certainly.
And she would get up there with, tape covering her nipples. I mean, whatever she did, she played herself off as one of the guys more than she played herself off as a naked woman.
I'm an adrenaline freak. I mean, that's what gets me off, and I hope it gets a lot of other people off, too.
In 1980, she showed Tom Snyder how to dispose of a Chevy Vega, and in a death-defying stunt, drove a car through a wall of TV sets into the Hudson River.
She was one of the real trailblazers for women out there just living the punk rock aesthetic.
All right, it's about time.
Wendy lived life on the edge, and she never looked back. Pantera punches in at number 9 on the badass list. They stand up for their fans, they're friends to the working girl, and they make fellow musicians bow down. Pantera's razor-sharp musicianship gets kudos from some of hard rock's toughest customers.
They don't sound like anybody, they don't look like anybody. You look at a picture of those guys and think there were 4 dudes who walked out of a swamp in Louisiana, like straight out of Deliverance, squeal like a pig.
Just tear anybody a new when I get on stage with them.
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
They might be serious musicians, but they don't take everything so seriously. While on tour with Biohazard, Pantera paid a well-endowed prankster $1,000 to surprise their tour mates.
I'm standing there playing and singing, and this guy comes right across with a boner, and stops right next to me. Like, this is funny stuff.
Pantera can out-party just about anybody.
I've had I don't know if you want to call it the fortune or the misfortune of being able to drink with Pantera a couple times, and my liver's still recovering.
We went out with Pantera 2 years ago, and that kind of really brought us back to that. We spent about 2 months drunk and breaking a lot of things and getting in a lot of trouble.
You want to break something, dude? We're gonna break something. Break it!
With Pantera, it's all about testosterone. There's plenty of room on their party wagon for ladies. Guitarist Steinweg Darrell, bassist Rex, and drummer Vinnie Paul are even partners in a Dallas, Texas strip club.
And well, Pantera, other than playing kick-ass music, was an ultimate party band. They did the chicks, they had the strippers.
They've got a loyal and crazy group of fans that'll do anything for them.
You know what our crowds look like? Not physically, but it's just like it reminds you of, you ever pull over on the side of the road and have some dead dog laying in the road and there's maggots all over it, just going crazy? That's what our crowds look like. We're taking over this town.
Pantera are fiercely loyal to those kids. When security gets rough, they step in.
I mean, if they're hurting the kids, I'll jump down, I'll intervene, and I'll say, whoa, 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 knock it off, honk.
That is why they're one of the biggest bands out there right now, as far as heavy metal bands go. I mean, they are the ultimate badasses for this generation.
Pay attention.
Up next, the Nuge gets on with his bad self. Countdown, we're into our top 10 list of the biggest bad boys of rock, and Skid Row's Sabastaian Bach is here at number 8. He got into all kinds of trouble in the late 80s and early 90s. His music is full of teenage rebellion and angst, and he just made kids want to pound their fist into the air.
It's like, and you're just feeling mean and ornery, and you want to just somehow get some of that out. And you don't want to hurt anybody, you don't want to do anything against the law, but at the same time, nothing wrong with banging your head in your room or just, you know, expressing yourself or getting it out through that way. It's therapy. You know, it's great therapy.
A lot of kids must have needed therapy because Skid Row conquered the charts in the early 90s, and the attitude of the music had a lot to do with it. And that all stems from the personality of their former fearless leader.
Sabastaian Bach busts in at number 8 on the top 40 badass countdown. He's a hair metal messiah and a public pariah who was crazy enough to take on the world's worst terrorist. Give Sabastaian Bach a stage and a microphone and then stand back.
It's just like an adrenaline rush. It's like a lightning, you know, bolt going right down your back. You know, you just get out there and go,
I saw Skid Row open for Aerosmith, and it was the day America bombed Libya, and Sabastaian went into this raging, fierce diatribe. Muammar Gaddafi, he get ass on stage and you could get a piece of me. And he just went off.
Sabastaian sounded the rallying cry of a generation desperate to party.
He was the epitome of the youth gone wild. I mean, he had it tattooed on his arm, and that's what rock and roll is all about. It's just that big middle finger to the world.
He's a bad, bad boy, but he's trying to be good.
I don't wake up every day and go, how can I be bad? I go, how can I be good? You know, and it never works.
Sabastaian Bach is damn right obnoxious, and I mean that in the highest form. I think if Baz was 100% sober and only drank decaf, he would still be Sabastaian Bach and be an obnoxious, wiry guy.
I drove down to his house. He's standing out in the road holding a tree trunk like a strong man, and he's like, "Whoa!" You know, like a wild man, like Tarzan.
And Sabastaian he's just psycho.
Swinging in at number 7 on our list of badasses is the Motor City madman Ted Nugent. He turns his stage show into a safari. He takes his road rage to new levels, and he always speaks his mind because he doesn't care who he pisses off. On tour in Texas in April 2000, Ted offended the Latino community by urging non-English speakers to leave the country. One Houston arenas banned the Nuge forever.
So what if he's never allowed to play in Texas again? Because he'll play outside Texas and people will drive 6 hours to see him because they won't let him play in Texas.
There are some people that think that I'm a bad boy, but those are just either Gomers or country and western guys who can't handle the energy.
Ted's an intense guy, on stage and off.
He had rented a car and he was driving across the bridge, and some guys in a van, they cut him off, you know, almost ran him off. On the Golden Gate Bridge, he rammed their car, man, with his car, and they tried to run him off the road then, you know, they started getting in this whole thing on the bridge, and he pulled the gun out, you know, waved it, bam, 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 shot up in the air and stuff at these guys, man. He said they freaked out.
The avid hunter even works his bow and arrow into his act.
Who's going to argue calling somebody a badass when they're armed with a bow and arrow half the time?
Well, anybody that can go out in the woods with a bow and arrow and shoot a deer from, like, you know, 100 yards away, cut it, clean it, take it home and stick it in your fridge to feed your family, that's pretty ballsy.
Ted may be a tough guy, but he does have one soft spot.
He had just an insatiable desire to sort of, you know, do as much as he could with as many women as he could.
There was a time when he had 2 very young girlfriends. And I didn't like that at all.
He's crazy, and he's just still as sick as he's always been.
I'm just a dumb, old, aging, greasy, over the hill, what do they call him, aging rock star guitar player.
You gotta wangle tango, baby!
Ted Nugent was a real rock and roll rebel. Songs like Wango Tango and Yank Me Crank Me, and of course who could forget Wang Dang Sweet Poontang. There wasn't a whole lot left of the imagination. And on stage, Ted himself let everything just sort of hang out, wearing nothing but a loincloth and a coon's tail. Coming up, Axl Rose gets arrested for assault.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games.
Lemmy Kilmister chases some punks out of a show.
So he'll grab the mic stand or a broomstick or whatever and run after him.
All coming up on the Rock Show Top 40 Bad